This edition of the Ridley Report is brought to you by NewHampshireFreePress.com.
Are you enjoying that violence? Are you enjoying that?
Are you getting an adrenaline rush?
Pandemonium outside Keene District Court. This was the scene on April 13th, 2009, after I was arraigned for attempting to videotape near the courtroom. The jail experience itself was much calmer, but it was still interesting, so I continue the tale. One of the questions that I like to ask guards if I'm in a jail situation, or just whenever I meet them out and about, what is the percentage of inmates in your facility who are charged only with victimless crimes? At Cheshire, most of the guards do not have an answer for me, but one of them estimates 70%. I'm impressed with the honesty, and I would have to admit that even I would not have come up with a number that high based on my experience. I only come in close contact with roughly 5 other inmates during my stay. One is there for spitting on his girlfriend, another for stealing money while dressed as a U.S. Marshal, a third for alleged criminal threatening, although he denies that was his intent, and only the final 2 could I say were definitely there on victimless charges, at least by their own claim. So in my experience it was 40%. Either way, the number's way too high, and I think of it as my duty while I'm there to do something about it. On roughly the 5th of my 6 days, an angry young man is brought into our so-called special housing unit. He says he is suffering a roughly 6-month sentence for driving suspended repeatedly. He has been working under light security in a kitchen outside the jail and has been relatively content there. But he says he's had a misunderstanding with his supervisors regarding where he was supposed to be at a certain hour. He says he thought he was supposed to continue working at the kitchen, but guards say he was supposed to be back at the jail. They punish him by putting him in a tiny cell like mine. He surges with rage after guards leave. He begins banging on his bars. Other residents of this gulag take it in stride, and eventually we get his story out of him. We settle on a course of action. Some of us will write the jail captain and express our concerns regarding the young man's treatment. This is the note I write. Dear Captain Mousseau, I wanted to express my concern regarding the disobeying a CO's order case of inmate unnamed. I'm deleting his name from the story, but I didn't delete it from the letter. Anyway, continuing the letter. He seems to have good reason to object to his placement in the East Block Special Housing Unit. It sounds as though his confinement may be a result of a misunderstanding between folks at his work location in the jail itself. No one seems to have been available to address his concerns for the 30-plus hours he has been here. How about letting him out of this section and back to where he prefers to be? Yours, Dave Ridley, East Block Outlaw Journalist. Then in my next message to the outside, I urge activists on the outside to call Captain Mousseau with the same question. I don't know how much impact, if any, it had, but it was what we could do from where we were. As a Wing Chun instructor once said, when you can't get your fist on the target, try to get your elbow on the target. If your elbow won't go there, use your shoulder. If you can't do the shoulder, use your head. No matter how many paths are blocked, there's always something you can do to resist. And that applies to peaceful resistance as well as physical self-defense. At some point during my stay, a guard stops by my cell and informs me that he is a fan of the Ridley Report. But he seems reluctant to praise me too much. After all, there are microphones that can monitor the entire cell block. An interesting piece of mail arrives. It is not primarily a letter, but a collection of games, simply printed out on pieces of paper like a letter. It comes from Johnson at Free Talk Live, and it is a brilliant idea. Unlike a letter, each of these pieces of paper can provide 15 to 20 minutes of entertainment. Some of the games are a paper version of Battleship, There are crossword puzzles, and I believe some Sudoku games. Although I personally don't find any of these games interesting, they make a great thing to hand out to other inmates. And it brightens the days of my cell block mates. If I had been in need of something to barter with, these items would have come in handy for that purpose as well. I would highly encourage other activists to do what Johnson has done for the activists that are jailed. I'm sure you can contact him some way through freetalklive.com, and he can show you what he did, so you can repeat it. Coming up in the next edition of Jailed for Journalism, apparent record turnout as 40 activists show up to welcome my release.